Hi, I'm Cheryl Myers. I live in Bentley. Today we're reading from Genesis 45, verses 16 onwards. When the news reached Pharaoh's palace that Joseph's brothers had come, Pharaoh and all his officials were pleased. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Tell your brothers, do this. Load your animals and return to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your families back to me. I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land." You are also directed to tell them, "Do this. Take some carts from Egypt for your children and your wives, and get your father and come. Never mind about your belongings, because the best of all Egypt will be yours." So the sons of Israel did this. Joseph gave them carts as Pharaoh had commanded, and he also gave them provisions for their journey. To each of them he gave new clothing, but to Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 sets of clothes. And this is what he sent to his father: 10 donkeys loaded with the best things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and other provisions for his journey. Then he sent his brothers away, and as they were leaving, he said to them, "Don't quarrel on the way." So they went up out of Egypt and came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan. They told him, "Joseph is still alive. In fact, he's ruler of all Egypt." Joseph was stunned. He did not believe them. But when they told him everything Joseph had said to them, and when he saw the carts Joseph had sent to carry back, the spirit of their father Jacob revived. And Israel said, "I'm convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." So we join this bit of the story. First of all, before I start, I'm recovering from COVID and I'm really losing my voice. So forgive me if I sound a little hoarse. We join this story after Joseph has revealed himself to his long-lost brothers. These are the brothers who sold him into slavery around 27 years earlier. These are the brothers who debated leaving him for dead and then realised actually they'd get more for him if they sold him. So they did that instead. And after they did that, Joseph, his life was full of deep trial and struggle. He endured years in prison. And yet here's the culmination of what God has been doing in Joseph's heart all that time, and also what God was doing in the hearts of Joseph's family as well. It all comes to a climax in this powerful story of forgiveness and restoration and abundance. Now, preceding where we pick up today in verse 16, there's a whole other chunk of the story where Joseph can't hold in his emotions any longer. His brothers have gone to get grain from Egypt. There's a famine. And they don't know that essentially the prime minister of Egypt is Joseph. Joseph recognises them, but he doesn't reveal himself straight away. And he sets them these sort of various tests to check their hearts. And whilst today we're looking at verse 16 onwards, I think it's really important that we look at the beginning bit, the sort of weight of that start of the chapter, because it's all about total forgiveness. And then it's followed by this abundant blessing from Pharaoh. Joseph reveals his true identity. In verse 5, he says, "And now don't be distressed. Don't be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." I can tell you right now that is not what I would be saying to my sister if she sold me into slavery years ago. If I were to forgive, to my shame, I would probably have a caveat in there. And yet his forgiveness is total. He goes so far that he releases them from any burden, any guilt. He says, actually, it's not even you. It was God who sent me here, not you guys who sent me. And then he throws his arms around Benjamin and he weeps. And they embrace, and then he kisses all of his brothers. And it's full reconciliation. And Joseph could have used his position of power. He could have said, "I forgive you, but you are all going to be my slaves now." But he forgives without condition. Upon learning of the brothers, Pharaoh in verse 17 says, tell your brothers, do this, load your animals, go to the land of Canaan, bring your father, your families back to me. And he says, I will give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you can enjoy the fat of the land. He then goes on to say, never mind about your belongings, in verse 20. The best of all of Egypt will be yours. All blessing from the Pharaoh extends to these brothers who have wronged Joseph. And it's by extension, it's because of Joseph. Now, the reason I've been talking about all that is that I find this next bit all the more powerful. And there's this one line as Joseph sends them on their way. And he says in verse 24, don't quarrel on the way. Don't quarrel on the way. We've had this really dramatic reconciliation. We've had Joseph reveal himself to them. There's weeping, there's forgiveness, reconciliation, a cuddle. There's Pharaoh's blessing that comes about because of this recognition. Pharaoh kind of goes, oh my gosh, you know, you're the brothers of Joseph, who's marvellous. So by extension, you can have all this blessing. Everything's yours. Go and get your families. Come join in my gang. And then Joseph just goes, off you go with the carts loaded up. But guys, don't quarrel. Today, I really want to focus on that line. Don't quarrel on the way. Human beings are full of conflict. Our brokenness makes us lean into the path of whatever serves us best. It's the brokenness of the human condition. Now, I read this, actually, as a good English scholar, I would say that we should always acknowledge our sources of information. But I actually can't read my writing from where I scribbled this down. So I read this on the internet. So whoever wrote it on the internet, this is attributed to them. I just don't know who they are. Conflicts within families are often magnified by our human propensity to remember the past in a way that makes us look best. As a result, two loving relatives end up not only disagreeing about the meaning of what happened, but even about the facts themselves. By focusing on those areas of disagreement, we lose sight of a shared desire to be part of each other's lives. I trust I'm not alone in admitting that I've been in positions of conflict before, where sometimes the focus of a disagreement can become more about the meaning of what happened. Facts get tangled up, people remember things differently, and the conflict's magnified. As we look to the utterly horrific conflict that's going on in the Ukraine now, I feel it's never been more pertinent to look at those words. Don't quarrel on the way. Don't quarrel. Wouldn't everything look so different if Putin had those words made real in his heart right now? A quarrel isn't just a squabble. People die because of a quarrel. A quarrel is a deep lack of unity. When Joseph tells his brothers not to quarrel on the way, he knows the depths and power and destruction that comes from a quarrel. I wonder if he's anticipating them all going on their way, but deciding to work out who really was at fault all those years ago. Whose idea was it in the beginning to sell Joseph? Who's going to shoulder the blame now? As we navigate life, as we all accept the total forgiveness and abundant forgiveness from the Lord, we need to turn away from conflict of anger. We need to turn away from retribution or punishment. So I think today, I really want to rest on the thought that the most powerful place to be is in a place of unity, because that's where love is. Amen.